Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Scripting Fridays. My name is Ed Laine. I am a broker here out of Seattle. I don't know if you can tell by the Space Needle behind me, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we're going to dive in. How's that sound? So, my personal belief is that you will feel more confident, more effective, and have more success if you feel comfortable that you know what to say, when, and where in any situation. And I'm to the point now in my career where I can pretty much pull a string and say the right words to compel somebody to move in a direction I want them to move. So I share that every Friday. I also have a website that if you can't make this meeting, you can go to whatwouldEdsay.com and ask my custom GPT what I would say, because I've loaded into it all of my scripts and dialogues. So today, I wanted to cover sort of the question we all get. How's the market? We're in an interesting time. And so I'm actually just going to stop sharing my screen and talk to you because we get that question from everybody, no matter what the market's doing. But we're actually at a very interesting time right now. So I thought it'd be wise for us and for me to share what I'm saying to buyers and sellers right now, in light of the fact that a couple things are happening, right? Interest rates are trending downward. My team put a couple deals in escrow over the weekend, and those buyers got interest rates in the 5s. Why is that? Well, every time the Fed meets, rates start moving before the meeting. And as you hopefully know, the Fed's meeting next week, Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, the 16th and 17th. In fact, here's a funny little side note. I got interviewed by Forbes magazine last week, and I actually kind of pointed the finger at them. I mean, I was kind and gentle, but I said, look, the Fed's been meeting for decades, since the 50s, every 6 weeks. And before their meeting, every 6 weeks, interest rates move depending on what they anticipate the Fed's going to do. That's always been the case. And yet, this is where I pointed the finger. I said, and yet you guys aren't going to talk about it until the 17th, which at that point was 2 weeks away, right? Because that's the day Jerome Powell will come to the podium when the meeting ends and tell people we've lowered rates 25 basis points. Rates have already gone down 25. They sort of build into the markets what they anticipate is going to happen. And it's almost always accurate. Like, I can only think of a few occasions where the markets were wrong. One example is last year when they moved at 75 basis points. The market had anticipated 50. And does everyone know what a basis point is? I should probably just quickly touch on that. A basis point is a percent of a percent. So 1% is 100 basis points. So when they say we're lowering rates 25 basis points, that's a quarter of a percent of interest, right? So rates are already trending downward. The news won't carry that story until next week. So you should all be, this is now the buyer dialogue, right? Hey man, there's never been a better time to buy, literally. And you might be wondering, well, why is that? Or they might ask you, well, why is that? Well, here's the reason. Rates have already started trending downward, and the news hasn't picked it up yet. So you don't have the competition that's going to happen after next Wednesday. Because when the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal have headlines that say Fed lowers rates, buyers are going to come out of the woodwork. And you're going to see multiple offers again. You're going to see bidding wars again. I've got sellers right now that are frustrated their homes haven't sold. What should I be saying to them? Hang in there, right? Be patient. The Fed's meeting next week. Rates have already started to trend downward. Buyers are already coming back to the table. So let's don't let me confuse you. Let's talk buyers first, then we'll talk sellers. But that's the dynamic that's going on, right? So back to buyers. How's the market? The market is slow, but it's about to heat up. And if you're thinking about buying, you should move quickly. Why is that, Ed? The Fed is meeting next week, and when they meet, they're going to lower rates. And how do I know that? Jerome Powell spoke in Jackson Hole, Wyoming last week and said so much. But the market was already trending downward because Wall Street is smarter than all of us. And they recognized the Fed was going to finally intervene. What does that mean? Or they'll say, does the Fed control mortgage rates? A lot of people think they do. They don't. Right? So if they say, so they're going to lower mortgage rates, actually, technically, no, they don't control mortgage rates. But what they do control is the Fed funds rate and the prime rate. And those two interest rates are the cost of money between banks. So the overnight cost of money. And that's what causes interest rates to trend downward. The other dynamic that goes on is when rates go down, investors in Wall Street move their money into bonds. That helps interest rates, right? So I don't get very deep into the markets part of this, but I do make sure they understand that the Fed isn't going to Chase Bank and saying, okay, your 30-year fixed rate now needs to go down by a quarter point. That's not what's happening. That's not how it works. But the outcome is that the rates will fluctuate lower. So if you have a buyer, sprinkle a little bit of fear, right? Has anyone ever read Cialdini's books? He's a economist / psychologist, and he talks about the 5 characteristics that cause consumers to buy. Fear is one of them. So there's nothing wrong with us saying, hey, you're going to have more competition next week. So wouldn't it be smart for us to go out this weekend? Right? I've been saying that now for close to a month because before Jackson Hole, Wyoming, we already knew, based on what he says and how he tiptoes around the topic. And, it's not that Trump beats on him and presses him to do it. It's what does he do with that? What does he react with that? Right. And I'll tell you guys just my own personal frustrations is he's waited too long. There's only 2 meetings between now and the end of the year. And so rates should have started going down in the summer. Now they're going down in September, right? And that pisses me off because he's doing that out of spite for Trump. And I know Trump is polarizing. I'm not taking a stance on that. By the way, no one should ever know your political leanings. Like your clients need to wonder, because if they know, if you post stuff on social media, you're going to alienate half of your clientele. So just be Switzerland, right? Be in the middle. But I also don't have a problem pointing out for somebody to do something, I'm talking about Jerome Powell, that affects, nearly 400 million Americans out of spite really annoys me, right? He should do what's best for the country, period, full stop. That's it. But he's not. And now finally he is. So back to buyers. Sorry for the tangent. So talk to your buyers, right? A dialogue you can use. Like we all have buyers in our pipeline that are saying, oh, I'm waiting for rates to go down. They don't realize they've already gone down. So call them. Hey, I don't know if you've heard, but rates are now in the fives. Sellers are still motivated and stressed out because the market hasn't heated up yet. And that means we can get the seller to pay a credit to help buy the rate even lower, whether it's a 2-1 buy down or just a flat buy down, right? I just put one in escrow yesterday. I'm the listing broker. I represent a bank. So it's a foreclosure. And I got the asset manager to pay 10 grand towards the buyer's closing costs. That's going to help them get a lower rate, right? So sellers are still nervous, and we're going to come back to sellers to talk about them. I just want to finish up buyers, right? So call through your buyer pipeline, let them know rates have already gone down. Call your favorite lender and just say, hey, what's the current 30-year fixed rate, assuming 20% down and high credit scores? And he'll probably say, 6 or 6.1. I asked that question of my guy a week ago today, and he said 6.125. And you guys all know that interest rates are quoted in eighths of a percent. So 0.125 is an eighth of a percent. Well, I can pay some money to take that 6.125 down to 6. I can pay more money to take it down to 5.875 or 5 3/4, and it stair steps down. Rates are published every day on what I want you to imagine it like a ladder, right? It's these rungs of a ladder. And with each interest rate, there's a cost. So if the cost is 0, we call that par, the par rate. That means it doesn't cost you anything. You also don't receive anything back. And I should qualify this by saying I was a lender for 30 years. I'm very knowledgeable about this stuff, right? But this isn't rocket science. And I run a team of about 70 brokers here in Washington. And I always tell them, you don't need to know as much as your loan officer, but you need to be knowledgeable enough to speak intelligently and to listen for red flags. Like a buyer that says, hey, I got a new car. You're like, oh, that's not good. Let's make sure your debt to income ratio didn't just blow up, right? So anyway, when they say the par rate today is 6 1/8, that means I can get 5 7/8 or even 5 3/4 if I can get the seller to pay a couple points, right? And because sellers are reading the same headlines and the headlines are not yet talking about rates going down, they're nervous and they're pliable or compliant, right? They'll say yes to that sort of request. So put in your notes, a 2-1 buy down costs approximately 2.3%. So on a $700,000 purchase, that would be $17,500-ish, right? Could you get a seller to pay a couple points in closing cost credit when they've been on the market for 50 days or 70 days? Absolutely, right? And when you talk to the listing broker, just explain it's about the net. And we're only asking for this. Here's 2 dialogues I use to sell a closing cost credit that I'm asking for. My client needs this to get the rate low enough to qualify. Otherwise, we're going to have to go buy something else. So that's an immovable object, right? That's going to cause that listing broker to go to the seller and say, we have to say yes to this if we want to sell to this buyer, right? The other thing I'll say, if it's maybe a smaller amount, is I'll say, this is what my loan officer told me we needed in order to land the ship on time. And they'll go, okay, I'll try, right? And all I'm doing is, and I should have started with this, I precede that last sentence with, we're presenting a strong offer. It includes a closing cost credit. But if you counter in price, because that closing cost credit is critical for us to land the ship on time. So that'll cause them, if it's 700 and I'm asking for 17 grand, they might counter at 710 for 17 grand, right? And leave the credit in there. So just, you got to communicate with the listing broker. On my team, we actually call the listing broker 2 times before we submit any offer. And I'll run through the script real quickly on this. I didn't prepare a slide for it, but this might help you guys. There's 4 things we want to cover when we call them. The first is build rapport. We want them to love us and want to work with us, right? So what are the best ways to get another human to like you? Compliment them and use humor. People like humor. So it might sound like this. Hey, Suma, this is Ed Laine with eXp Realty. I just wanted to reach out and talk to you about your listing on 1234 Happy Street. What a beautiful house. And oh my God, have you done an incredible job of marketing that house? And then I wait for her to respond, right? And I'm not asking you to respond, Suma. But then I'll say, hey, I just want to ask you a couple questions because I think my client is going to want to put an offer together. Question number 1. And this is the second point to make, right? So point number 1 is build rapport, compliment, or use humor. Point number 2, which is question number 1, are there any terms besides price that are important to your client? They might say, what do you mean? Price is all we care about. Well, like closing in possession. Do you want me to push that out or move? Is it closer? Is sooner better? Where are they at on their move? Oh, it's already vacant. Okay. So sooner is best. Okay. Other than that, just the cleanest offer I can write, right? And they go, yep. Okay, great. Question number 2, do you have any other offers or anyone threatening? That's an important question, right? Because if they do, I want to start using the rapport that I've already built with you to get you to tell me where those are at. That's great. Congratulations. I'm stoked for you. I'm less happy for my client, but that's awesome for you and your client. If we wanted to win, where would we need to be? And listing brokers are on a continuum, right? Of willingness to share. And the continuum starts at the low end at, I can't tell you that. That would be unethical. Or I'm not allowed to tell you that. And then it goes all the way to the top, which is I've had listing brokers send me the offer. How crazy is that, right? But that's the other extreme. So if they say, well, I can't tell you that, I'll say these exact words. I'm not trying to ask you to do anything unethical. So I want to touch on the fact that it's their moral compass that's preventing them from talking, right? So I want to recognize that. I want to say, I'm not asking you to do anything unethical. I'm just hoping that you will fulfill your fiduciary duty. What have I done by mentioning that term? I pulled them to the table because they don't want to breach their fiduciary duty. That would be illegal, right? I'm just hoping that you're willing to fulfill your fiduciary duty and give me a little bit of coaching, which will end up with more money in your client's pocket, which is your goal. And then if they still stick to their guns and say, I understand all that, but I can't, I'm not allowed, or the law doesn't let me, or my ethics don't let me, or whatever, I'll just start playing the hotter, colder game. Do you remember that when you were a kid? I'll go, well, is the current offer above the list price? Am I getting warmer, colder? 5 grand above? Warmer, colder, 10 grand above? Right? I'll just, and yes, I've had sellers say, shut up, stop doing this. I'm not going to answer. And that's okay. I'm just not going to give up on the first no, right? And neither should you. And then the 4th question is the closing cost credit part of this. Hey, if we present an offer, because remember, I started call number 1 with my clients thinking about writing an offer. So if we put an offer together, it's probably going to have a closing cost credit. Is your client open to that? All I'm doing is inoculating the listing broker to that possibility because we don't have any numbers. I haven't said how much we're going to offer or ask for, or any of that. I just want to inoculate them to not be surprised when they see it, right? Or even better, to go look for it because I mentioned it, right? And if they say, oh yeah, my client is dead set against any sort of closing cost credit, I'll start selling again. Really? What if that's the only path to getting the home sold? Shouldn't they be more worried about the net? And if I have to, I'll say, I'll work on get my client to offer more than the list price to cover it. Like, that doesn't mean I have to, but I can certainly inoculate you to think that, right? So that's the 4 points to make in the first phone call. The second phone call is the same 4 points, more rapport building, less questions about what are the terms besides price, because we already got that answer, right? But have any new offers come in since the last time we spoke? And then if they have, great, congrats, where are they at, right? Now let's come back to the what's the market doing conversation for sellers. And I'll speak to 2 scenarios. 1, the seller that's already on the market, and 2, the seller that's considering going on the market. The seller that's already on the market is easy. Preach patience. I'm fed up. We're 60 days on the market. I've heard, we're heading into the holidays. I should take my house off the market. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Fed's meeting next week and they're going to lower rates. And we know this because they've already started to go down. Buyers are starting to come off the sideline. So we should at least ride this out, right? And another dialogue that I use this time of year is, hey, did you know that, and this is true every year, did you know that there's a bump in activity after Labor Day? So you should stay on the market through September either way, right? Even if the Fed weren't meeting. And they might say, well, why is that? Well, the most common answer I hear is people try and move before the school year starts, which starts around Labor Day, and not all of them make it, but they still want to move. So they put homes in escrow after Labor Day. So we may as well see what happens, right? Now, because the Fed is meeting, I might also talk about a price reduction if you're 60 days on the market. Because wouldn't it be great to show up at the top of the hot sheets thanks to a price reduction, right as buyers are starting to turn their attention back to the market? Right? So that could be the scenario. Now, sellers who are wondering if they should go on the market, I'll talk to them about the bump in activity, the Fed meeting, and how your timing could be perfect. I put 2 listings on the market yesterday using that dialogue, right? I also, if they're nervous about it, I may say, so here's a scenario that we could, or a plan that we could follow. Let's put it on the market. Let's hope the Fed meeting sparks activity and it sells. But if it doesn't, we can take it off the market in October. And in our MLS, you want to understand the rules in your MLS, but in our MLS, if you're off the market for 60 days or more, the days on market number resets. So we can pull a home off in October and come back on the market in January with 0 days on market. So I'll walk them through the steps to do that. And then I'll finish with, and if we go that route, we put multiple properties on the market on the 3rd Thursday of January every year, and they always sell very quickly. Now, one wrinkle is January of 2026. The third Thursday is the 15th. That's too early. So we would actually do the 22nd. And they may say, well, why? What's the big difference? Buyers wake up on New Year's Day with their cell phones in their hands, and they look across the couch, probably hungover, right? And they go, honey, this is going to be the year we buy a house or move. And they start looking. So wouldn't it be smarter for us to be on the leading edge of that new inventory that's coming into the market so that we sell quickly, right? I just had this conversation yesterday with an agent on my team who was talking to a seller who said, we've decided to wait because the market's slowing down and we're heading into the holidays. It's a condo. Condos are taking longer to sell. Guess what? Both of the ones I listed yesterday were condos. So, but the plan would be if it doesn't sell, we'll put it back on the market on January 22nd. Does that make sense to everybody? It's 8:27. We wrap this at the bottom of the hour, and I always try and leave a couple minutes at the end. So does anybody have questions about what I've covered so far or a scenario? And I'm going to put my website on the screen because a couple people have joined us late. Is there a scenario that any of you are facing that you're wondering what I would say? Because I'm happy to speak to that. And if you get that sort of question in between Fridays, go to whatwouldEdSay.com. You have to have a ChatGPT account to get it. And it can be the free one though. So just go into the custom GPT marketplace and search for my name and you'll find a couple of them, but, or you can go to whatwouldEdSay.com and just ask it. I've had agents on my team text me and go, I went to WWES and got this. And the first time they texted me that, I'm like, what the hell is WWES? And she goes, what would Ed say, silly? I'm like, oh yeah, forgot about that. So, all right. Well, if there aren't any questions or help that anybody needs, we can wrap this up. Was this helpful?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's nice.
Oh, good. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's nice.
Well, you guys have an awesome day. Call through your buyers. Let them know rates have already started to go down. Call your lender. Ask them what today's 80% loan to value or 20% down high credit score rate is. And hopefully it starts with a 5.
Super. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone.
Weekend. Bye.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.